The Hindenburg Marathon began yesterday with the start of the April 2025 update to World of Warships Legends, and it will last through the next two updates. Here's a match in the Hindenburg. Maybe we'll get to talk about the ship itself a little bit, and maybe we'll get to talk about the match a little bit too. But primarily, what I want to do right now is give you all of the information that I've been able to glean from the game itself and from some questions I asked Wargaming as to how do you actually obtain this ship? Is it possible to get it entirely for quote unquote free? And by that I mean, is it possible to grind out 20,000 ship parts without paying any money at all in the game? The answer is a little bit unclear. But what we have so far is this. Now, on the Marathon page, which you can access from the main menu of the game by clicking the square button if you're on PlayStation, it's the same way you would open a calendar event if there was one ongoing. On the Marathon page, at the bottom right-hand corner, on PlayStation, it tells me to click the left stick. Doing that opens up the following screen, which says how to unlock the ship. And this gives a cursory breakdown of all the available ship parts, but it only shows the specifics for this current update. However, you can see that the page is divided into two sections. One section shows the ship parts available through activities. The other shows the ship parts available through additional funding. I believe that additional funding section is the ship parts that are available for purchasing premium content that also comes with ship parts. For example, in the current update, that would be the Golden Week content, the containers that also give you ship parts as a quote-unquote bonus if you buy any of the golden containers. The activities, on the other hand, for this update and the future ones, would be the grindable activities. In this update, that would be the campaign and the weekly assignments. However, the activities section appears to show all of the ship parts available for grinding activities, provided that you buy the Admiralty backing. So we know the exact breakdown for the current update. On the Unlocking the Ship page, it says there are 4,900 ship parts available for activities. That's 1,500 from the campaign without buying the Admiralty backing. Just completing the campaign entirely, not spending the 2,500 doubloons for the Admiralty backing, you'd get 1,500. If you do buy the Admiralty backing, it's an additional 2,500. So, 4,000 in total for buying the Admiralty backing and completing the campaign. And then we have weekly assignments running throughout the update. I don't know the total amount that completing each weekly assignment gives you, but after you've completed all of them throughout the course of the update, you will end up with 900 ship parts from the weekly assignments. So that's how we get the 4,900. And then it says in the subsequent updates, the next one will have 8,500 ship parts from activities, and the final third one will have 13,000 from ship activities. If you take those three numbers, 4,900, 8,500, 13,000, and you add them up, that's a total of 26,400 ship parts for activities across all three updates, which is 6,400 more than the requisite 20,000 ship parts that you need to obtain Hindenburg when all is said and done. However, we don't know for the future updates yet how many parts are available from the campaigns without the Admiralty backing. We just know in the next update it's 8,500 total, presumably with the Admiralty backing, and the same thing for the third update, 13,000 total, presumably also with the Admiralty backing. Now, I asked Wargaming if it was possible to not buy the Admiralty backing for all three campaigns and still have 20,000 ship parts at the end of everything to be able to get Hindenburg. They've said very clearly so far that it is possible to get Hindenburg without buying any of the additional premium content for extra ship parts. And that's technically true, judging by the view of the activities. 26,400 for all of the activities over the 3 campaigns, but again, with Admiralty backing. So the key question is, without Admiralty backing, is it possible? The response that Wargaming gave me said, and I quote exactly, quote, "All we can say is that if you complete all the in-game activities, which include things like the campaign, weekly assignments, calendar events, other missions, etc., you will be able to get more than enough ship parts than the required 20,000. Okay, fair enough. That much is clear in the breakdown of the marathon in the game itself. You would be able to get more than 20,000. But can you get 20,000 exactly if you don't buy the Admiralty backing? I think that is the key question that a lot of people in the community have. It's a question I certainly have, because if you can, it would mean that the Hindenburg is fully obtainable just by grinding. Now, of course, you would have to pretty much grind the game on maybe not a daily basis, but a semi-daily basis over the next 3 updates in order to do that. But still, if you're a regular player of the game, that means you can get Hindenburg essentially for free, if that's possible. And the problem is, we don't know. It doesn't seem like Wargaming can tell us, and maybe the reason for that is they haven't quite mapped it fully out yet, or maybe they have, and they're not able to tell us for some other reason. Of course, I'm just asking the community managers for answers to these questions. They are not the ones who develop the actual game, and I don't think they really make any of the decisions for the various programs and activities that go on in the game. All they do is pass the messages from whoever makes those decisions. So can't really blame them if Wargaming is unable or unwilling to answer that question. But what I can tell you is I've done a little bit of math. If you did not buy the Admiralty backing in this update, but you did complete the entire campaign, and you completed the entire set of weekly missions, you would end up with 2,400 ship parts. Again, if you buy the Admiralty backing and do all of that, you'll end up with 4,900. So the difference between 4,900 and 2,400 is 2,500. 26,400 minus 2,500 is 23,900. So, if you did not buy the Admiralty backing for this particular update, April 2025, and you completed the campaign and the weekly assignments, and then you did buy the Admiralty backing for the subsequent 2 updates, completed the campaign, all the other activities that give you ship parts, well, then you would end up with 23,900 ship parts. That's still 3.9K over what you need. So you could certainly skip the Admiralty backing for this update in particular and still have more than enough to get the Hindenburg, provided you complete all of the activities in the next 2 updates and you buy the Admiralty backing for the next 2 campaigns. That is all I am 100% sure of. I don't know if in the next update or the one after that you will need to buy the Admiralty backing in order to have at least the 20,000 required. So it's very unclear. What I will say, however, is that the ship for this update, the Dalian, I haven't played it all that much, so I don't have much of an opinion on it yet. Instead, I spent most of my time yesterday when the update dropped just playing the Hindenburg. I got a little under 20 matches in, and I'd say it's a pretty solid ship, but does it live up to the hype? And should you worry about all of this grinding and all of these ship parts in order to acquire it? I don't know. Your mileage is going to vary on that. I think the Hindenburg from the beginning has always been overhyped in this game. Yes, it's a good cruiser. I would say after playing about 20 games in it, it's probably the best of the heavy cruiser German tech tree line, which makes sense because essentially this is the legendary tier ship of the German cruiser line. It's just we're not getting it in a bureau or through a campaign, we're getting it through this new marathon type setup. But it is an upgrade over Rune. It's got more guns. It's got 12 of them. They have the German pen. They have really great AP power. I've got actually a ton of footage recorded to make a proper review of this ship. And there's a lot of instances that I've had of shooting at broadside battleships, Yamatos, for example, and dealing 10, 12,000 damage to their broadsides with the AP. No citadels except at danger close distance. I did get a citadel on a Yamato once with the Hindenburg within like 3 kilometers of the ship. But in any case, the AP is effective. So is the HE. It's got the trademark German sonar with a very far ship spotting range, 5.7 kilometers in this case. The armor is pretty robust. Well, maybe not so much with all the 30 millimeter overmatch in the legendary tier. There are things like Vermont, Ohio. There's Republique at tier 8. There's Yamato, Musashi. All of these can overmatch 30 millimeters of armor plating, and Hindenburg has 30 millimeters of upper belt armor and deck armor, but it's got a 27 millimeter bow and stern, so it can be overmatched by most of the battleships, or a good deal of the battleships you'll see at the tier. The entire armor scheme can be overmatched by the likes of Ohio, Republique, Musashi, Yamato, Vermont. So it's not perhaps as tanky as some other cruisers at the tier, but it's tanky enough. The damage output is good. The sonar consumable is nice. It's certainly not a bad ship by any stretch of the imagination. I'd call it a pretty good ship, but is it worth all the headache that this sort of marathon seems to present? I don't know. All I can tell you is that I think the ship has been overhyped, and there's no way that it's ever going to live up to that hype. Even if the AP is good, we'll get a taste of that as this game wraps up against the Yamato. And I suppose I didn't really get to talk about the ship too much, or this battle too much, but this is one of the better XP results I got in the Hindenburg over playing it over about 20 games. I think we're going to end up with about 3,000 base XP. But the conclusions that we can draw here are we just don't know exactly how much money you would have to spend in order to get the Hindenburg. It may be the case that you have to buy 2 out of 3 of the Admiralty backings. Again, I think you could safely skip buying the Admiralty backing for this particular update only and still have more than enough ship parts at the end of things to get the Hindenburg, but that's all we know. So, if I were a betting man, I would say, just to be safe, you would probably have to assume that for the next 2 updates, you will have to buy the Admiralty backing for both campaigns and complete both of them, along with grinding all the other activities that drop the ship parts just for grinding. So, I hope that gives you a clearer picture of how the marathon works. That was my goal in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up. We'll do a proper review of the Hindenburg sometime later. And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.